Okay, so today we're going to dive into a big topic, consequences. Figuring out what to do when your kid is not listening or breaks a rule. It's tricky for all parents, but I think it's extra hard for lots of our listeners for two reasons. One, many of us are parenting differently than how we were parented. We're cycle breakers out here. Maybe as a kid, you were put in timeout, you were yelled at, you were spanked. So many of us are in the position of knowing we don't want to do that, but not knowing what to do when it comes to consequences for our kids. So, number two is when you're parenting a neurodivergent kid, consequences can be extra tricky to figure out. We often question and then second guess ourselves, asking things like, was this rule or expectation appropriate for them? Was there something else I should have done to set them up for success? Am I being too hard or too easy on them? And even, am I helping them more in the long run by letting this go or making it a big deal?
Those are such real questions for all, but kind of like on steroids for neurodivergent households for sure. So let's talk a little bit about how we think about consequences and why. And then we'll talk through some tips for setting up a logical system for consequences in your family. Welcome to Parenting Neurodivergent Humans. I'm Dr. Morgan Beidelman. I'm a psychologist, former teacher, parent to two kids, one of whom is neurodivergent, and I am neurodivergent myself.
And I'm Brianne Colpitz. I'm a school psychologist, parent to two neurodivergent kids, and I'm ADHD, which means I'm autistic and have ADHD.
So, first, let's break down the idea of consequences up into two categories. And different people use different words differently. Could I say that any more? Different. But, anyways, this is how we'll use it in this episode. First, we have what we call punishments. These are things that come from breaking a rule that was not logically connected to the rule that was broken. So most of us 80s and 90 kids are super familiar with these. You didn't clean your room on Tuesday, so now you like can't go to the movies on Fridays, or you use a swear word, so now you have to go mow the lawn. The second category is logical consequences. And this is more what we tend to experience as adults. If you are late to work, no one's going to make you do yard work for it or say that you can't go out to dinner tonight, but you might get paid less if you didn't clock in on time. Your boss will probably talk to you about it, or other people will talk about you.
Uh huh.
You might get fired, you might lose clients if it keeps happening. Like, those are logical consequences tied to a behavior. If you don't put gas in your car, no one's going to take TV away from you, but you might get stuck on the side of the road and need to walk to get gas. Or you might have to pay more because you have to go to another gas station that's near you. Or you might have somebody bring it to you. And then there's like social consequences and anxiety and things like that that come along with it. These are logical because they're more closely tied to the behavior than a punishment, which is like, I did this, let me find a consequence or a punishment, and it may or may not really relate.
Yeah. So, when we think about consequences for our kids, it's so much better to use logical consequences for a few reasons. So people are way more likely to do things if they see the point. So talking to your kids about why something is important and the logical consequence that comes from not doing it is usually going to work a lot better than because I said so, or do it or you will have X punishment this weekend. Logical consequences make sense so that they feel less mean to kids. They're not just about like inflicting pain because somebody messed up. They tend to tamp down the power dynamics. So, you don't get stuck in the power dynamics of things as much. They're real life teaching. So if you're using fear like as a way to get your kids to do something, they may only do the thing when you're there making them scared about what's going to happen. And so if we use logical consequences, it's more likely your kid will understand and be the kind of human that you hope they will when you're not around because they understand the cause and effect of all of it. And this one might surprise you, but logical consequences also help us as adults think about if this thing really matters. We talk
Mhm.
a lot about not shoulding on ourselves or our kids. If you think through how to explain why something is necessary, and what logical consequences would come from not doing it, and you realize that there really isn't one, then you might have found something out you can just walk away from. Maybe this is not the hill you should die on.
Yes. So to summarize that, we want it to be related to the behavior. We want it to be respectful so that there's not shaming and blaming happening. We want the consequence to be reasonable. So it's fair, it's age appropriate, it makes sense kind of like in context, and it's helpful for this person to be able to learn from a mistake, be able to problem solve in the future, etc. Right?
Yep.
Okay, so how do we establish logical consequences? So, first, think through why the thing is necessary, right? We put our dishes in the dishwasher because we need clean dishes to eat off of, and it's everybody's job in our house to help keep our house functioning. It's not just one member's job. We are all part of this household, so we all contribute to keeping the house functioning. That would be a way to think about that necessity. We ask before we use the car for safety because I need to know where, as a parent, I need to know where my kid is. And also, we want to be considerate because we may have two or three people using one car and we need to be able to coordinate, right? So, one of the reasons that this is an expectation or a rule is because of safety, and the other is due to consideration for other family members. And violating that may result in a logical consequence because it impacts safety and it impacts your consideration of your other family members.
Yeah, and then I think also think through what would happen if this thing wasn't done. So, for some things, there is a built in logical consequence. You didn't charge your iPad or your phone, and now your battery's dead. You left something somewhere, and now it's gone, or it's in the lost and found, and you ain't never seeing that thing again, okay? You dropped something and it broke. So, again, natural consequences, logical consequences. For other situations, you might need to think of a connected consequence. So for example, your kiddo, your teen who's a driver took the car to the corner store without asking and nothing happened. But them not being able to use the car is still a logical consequence. So they didn't get in an accident, but they didn't follow like the house rules around car usage. So you're finding a way to connect that consequence to the car. So for these, it's often the explanation of what makes it logical. So you didn't mow the lawn, so you can't go to the movie isn't logical. It's not connected and it doesn't solve the problem of the lawn not being mowed. You can go to the movie after you mow the lawn, makes sense, and now puts it on them to do it early enough to get to the movie. And
Mhm.
sometimes this might need to look more like logical restitution. So maybe your kid made a mess that you can't leave all day and school starts in 20 minutes, so they can't clean it up right now. It's like not going to get fully remediated or fixed. So having them pay back to the family system by cleaning up something else is still logical. You don't need to leave those berries on your couch all day. You can clean them up and like not be hurting the dog away from like the chocolate ice cream, that got left out or whatever it is. You don't have to do that. Don't start a power struggle because the kid can't clean up the actual mess. They could clean something else up to like repay for not meeting the family rules or expectations.
Yeah, you can decide as a family unit what are our norms, what are our code of conduct, and like what do we do when those things are broken? And then we can think about what we do when those things are broken in terms of types of logical consequence. Is there something where we need to go do it again? Is this something where we need time away? Is this something where we need to be in community or connection with another person and like understand their needs? Is this where we need to like repair? And sometimes repair is through payment, like restoration of something back into the system. And that's okay.
I can also just say real quickly that it's easy to get yourself into a situation where you didn't think through if this consequence was logical or not. And it's completely okay to walk it back, to be like, you know what? I said you couldn't go to the movies because you didn't mow the lawn. I thought about that for a minute when I was like more calm, and I actually think it would make more sense if you just got the lawn mowed and then you could go to the movie.
Mm.
Whatever it is, you can change your mind, you can reroute something, you can, as I said earlier, realize that something doesn't have a consequence and you can just let it go. You can also say, like, you know what? I realized It's actually not a big deal if you don't wear your pajamas to bed, like sleep in your clothes, whatever it is. But just giving you permission to make a hard right turn or left turn and change your mind and just say, like, I had some time to think about this and I realized this, and now this is what's happening.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, and then when you're in it, explain the plan calmly and logically, right? Once you're clear on what your boundary is and why it is important and what logical consequences will come from it not being followed or shared with your kid, you're kind of like in a much better place, right? Like if you can think through that for yourself and then explain that to your kid, you are halfway through, my friend. Walk through what the expectation is and the consequence that will come from not meeting it. And then, if necessary, help them with the executive function necessary to meet the expectation. This can be a little bit tricky. So, I want to give an example, like going back to the movie one, right? I know you want to go to the movie after you mow the lawn. The movie starts at 2, so we need to leave by 1:30. Like let's think about what time you would need to start mowing the lawn to be done on time. And then if your kid is anything like me or my children were, I would say something like, and remember that you're probably going to get sweaty while you're mowing the lawn, so you're probably going to want to take a quick shower or at least change your clothes before you go, and we know that it takes about 20 minutes to mow the lawn. So I might give my kid those parameters because I'm helping them with the executive functioning. I'm giving them some of the details and then letting them plan. I might even follow up by saying something like, so how long do you think it's going to take to mow the lawn? And then I might say like, so how long do you think you're going to need to mow the lawn and get ready to be out the door by 1:30? And then I'm like, okay, do you need anything to help you execute that? Because I'm going somewhere else. Like, this is the end of that conversation. So, do you need to set a reminder on your phone? What's going to help you? Of course, that can vary depending upon age and need, but those are some ways to support the executive functioning while keeping the onus on your child. Note that I did not say, I'm going to come remind you in 20 minutes. I'm going to come check in with you. I'm going to come do this, right? Like I'm priming the pump. I'm trying to like set them up, but then I'm going to walk away and let them execute.
Right, and you're also not punishing your kid for having an executive functioning like disability. You're supporting them to meet this goal, or whatever like the expectation is. You're helping them figure out, like the consequences. You're just going to miss a movie if you can't get it done or whatever. And you're giving them some scaffolding, to help them without doing it themselves. Like this is how we raise healthy neurodivergent humans, I think, is a lot of this modeling, exampling, like scaffolding, like giving steps, and then like we talked in a past episode, the gradual release of letting them do it. So yeah, all of that. I think then, another step is to hold the boundary in a loving and supportive way. Natural consequences and logical consequences can still suck and not be fun. And it's okay to help them through that and validate that because it's not like, again, we're not trying to make them feel super bad. We're trying to like teach our kids through this. Discipline is all about teaching, it's not just about making kids feel bad. No one ever changed their behavior because of shame. So that's not actually a supportive stance here.
They did externally change the
Right.
behavior and they internally created anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, etc. Right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
it might
They
look
didn't,
like they changed the behavior.
yes, but inside it ain't healthy. Okay. So, we can validate their feelings. Oh man, yeah, it really sucks your switch broke when you threw it. Then when they are calm, you can help them problem solve. If you want another one, help them look up the price, figure out a plan to save for a new one. Maybe they use like some saved up birthday money if they're lucky enough to have it, or do some odd jobs for neighbors that could get them, like the money they need for a used one. Those are impactful, real consequences that are completely natural and very similar to what they would need to do or think through if they broke something of theirs as an adult.
Mhm.
Again, when you have a logical consequence, it's part of the beauty of it is that it's just the consequence, right? And so the beauty of it is if the consequence is triggered instead of being the one to give out the punishment, You can be on the same team. You can partner with your kid because you're not the bad guy. You're just like helping them through this cause and effect thing that happened. You're coaching them through dealing with the real consequences of their action, and you're being like a helpful thought partner through the process. If you're
Mhm.
regulated.
If you're yeah, if you're regulated. I was thinking about this, and one thing that I'd like to share on it is sometimes I think we move through the feelings into the problem solving really quickly. And it's almost as a way to avoid the negative feelings. And I notice this even for myself as a therapist. Like I was sitting in a session with somebody and they had this realization of something that they had thought they wanted and then they didn't get it. And, like that's happened to all of us, right? And, it was like, they're like, well, it's going to be okay because, and they're ready to move on. And they're like, here's all the ways I'm going to solve this. And I noticed that I felt better too, right? Like when they were like, and now we're moving into problem solving. And there's beauty in that. There's times where we're like, we need to keep going, right? But there's also real value in sometimes separating that a little bit and letting those feelings be felt and then coming back a little bit later, either later in the day or another day to really get into the problem solving. And I just want to highlight that because I noticed it even as a therapist whose part of my job is to help people process emotions, wanting to scoot on past that. And there's value because sometimes that is actually the consequence is the
Yeah. The
feeling of that,
discomfort.
the discomfort.
Yeah. I think it's super important that you highlighted that this isn't necessarily going to be like a quick, fast process.
Mhm.
That we need to take the time to be in the stink, the suck, the discomfort, because not being able to handle those things, it's not great. Humans need to be able to handle discomfort and work through things. That's where our skills of being able to regulate our nervous system comes from. And we can't really fast forward that. So thanks for bringing that up.
You can validate feelings while holding boundaries
Yeah.
and we don't have to jump right into that problem solving. But when we are ready to having set this up in a logical like through the lens of logical consequences can allow us to really be on the same team as our kids and when appropriate problem solve the next step.
Love it.
Also, I know that I have said this before, but just because I'm kind of in love with it and want to crash it all the time, I would like to do one more plug for Brienne and your parenting group, Connected Parent Collective, because you have a new cohort and it's starting next week, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Starting early September. So check out the show notes for more info if that piques your interest.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I have said this before. Like, I really want to crash it. Whenever you talk about it, it just, you come to our meetings and you have like such light and excitement and joy around it. And you always have these like great stories about experiences that parents have had and stuff. And I don't know. I'm like, I don't have any school age kids, but can I come hang out?
We'll create a new cohort just for you and grown-ups, okay?
Yeah, it sounds really amazing, and it sounds like
Thank
there's
you.
some really great connection happening there, so
Thank
awesome, and
you.
excited that it's starting soon.
Yeah, one of my favorite things, one of the favorite support services that Successfully Social offers.
Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week to talk about getting neurodivergent kids back to school. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it.
And if we are a good fit for you, follow us over on Instagram. Dr. Morgan is at Dr. Morgan Beidelman, and Brienne is at It's Brienne Colpitts. You can also find the podcast on YouTube if you want to see all the dorky moves we make on the video. And then a new thing this season, y'all, we have Patreon, which is a way that you can support the podcast with just like a little bit of love every month in the form of dollar bills. And you get some extra perks. So please check that out. We can't wait to hang out with you in the Patreon community.
Yes, absolutely, and then quite transparently, those dollar bills go to Erica, our amazing producer, and editor.
Yeah. Thanks, Erica. If you get more ideas about shows you want us to cover, topics, send us a note. you know where to find it. But if you don't, there's a Google form in the show notes and you can always just send us a DM on Instagram. So, yeah, do that if you feel called, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great week.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. Oh, right. I start. Okay.
Just a quick disclosure, this podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute a psychologist-client relationship and should not be used in place of an expert evaluation or therapy.
Oh, that iced coffee looks good.
It's a Vietnamese iced coffee,
Ugh.
and it's so fucking good. I started filming a TikTok after my first sip. I was like, "Mhm," and then I was like, why does Vietnamese iced coffee make me feel like I can do anything? It's like superpower juice.
Yeah. Mm.
I got it just for this because I was like, I'm gonna get myself a little special coffee for our
Well, something, something.
batch recording day.
I'm impressed that you've already gone out and come back today.
I have. Um, a couple things.
Thought that the executive functioning issues largely come from their essential.
Sorry. Hold on. I'm now buying books. I'm leaving. I'm coming back. I'm here. Okay.
Okay.
There isn't dopamine. And
Yeah.
until that dopamine gets activated,
Ain't
e
nothing gonna happen.
ain't nothing gonna happen. And what I would hate for a parent, Jasper
Yeah.
can tell that we're done recording.
Oh, Jasper.
Jasper. Doesn't he look like he should have a monocle?